While we're waiting for that, the microphone to come on, Ben, there was something that I picked up in the last presentation. In fact, it was from the question over there, and we were talking about progress mapping from using point clouds. And I know this is something that you've actually developed yourselves. And do you also recognise that as an opportunity?
We are a 60-person architectural interior design engineering firm, so relatively small compared to many of the big names here. And we took a decision in 2012 to push forward into BIM using Revit as our platform. So we're nearly 5 years in, and we've made great strides into where we are internally within the various business units, but also seeing the benefits in terms of design and delivery. To your point, Chris, one of the things that we realized a year or two, say 2013, 2014, was that we were often working off, because the heart of the business is actually interior design, although we have an architectural division. We were often working off very poor information, as-built drawings, design drawings, or none at all. We're realizing that there's a lot of buildings, and you made the point earlier on about the question of here, refurbishment of buildings.
Indeed, yeah.
So we invested in 3D laser surveying, and that's a separate business unit that we have, and we've seen that there's an incredible connection between the two in terms of delivering BIM, but also starting from a point.
And that could also be into actually looking at progress on site, in fact, because you could use the same technology for that.
We did, yeah. So we were approached by, it was the Apple store actually in Abu Dhabi, where it wasn't why we made the investment, but and we're starting to do that a lot more, where we're actually doing a point cloud survey on a project every 2 weeks as the progress report, and they can't lie. Progress reports do lie. It's not a case of they can, they do. So we're seeing incredible value, and this all came off the back of making a decision in 2012 to make the investment in BIM. And again, being a relatively small business compared to some of the names here.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I think it's. I think we'll come back onto that actually, because it's not all about the big players. There's also BIM needs to be on the basis it's going to be common platform. It is something that is going to need to be accessible to SMEs as well as the larger firms. Which brings me on to my first question for the panel here. Is really about the adoption of BIM. And Mansour, first question to you really about and it's really your view on this. The early adopters of BIM was definitely the design side of the business, as Ben has just mentioned, and on that basis, it was basically a market force that created that adoption. And in fact, Richard's previous presentation also talked about it. He talked about necessity being the mother of invention, which is very true. But this is all market force. Do you think it is up to the market to enable BIM, or do you think there should also be regulation? Is it one or the other, or do you think it should be both? How do you see that?
Well, as a form of innovation, we believe that mandation is required at the beginning, so it could be well enforced. Now, for simple example, if we talk about the green building regulation, for example, it never been a hot topic for discussion unless it became a mandatory requirement by authority, and then everyone starts talking about that. Nowadays, we talk about these 3D printing technologies in construction, since we have the target by His Highness, and now this one became a hot topic on the table. So when this BIM became a really mandation by authority or by regulation, then everyone will start looking on how to implement and how to improve. So I do believe that mandation is required.
Okay, and you would say that presumably that you can never stop the market, so it's almost just mandation needs to keep pace with the market.
It needs to be enforced at the beginning. Once it's enforced, then it's became objective for everyone to look after and try to improve.
Interesting. And so I'm going to turn to Rasha now for this. The next question is around design documentation. I know this is something that you feel reasonably passionate about. So let's just get now to the practicalities of it. You in terms of what you receive from employers' requirements and the design side is or is not fairly intact BIM models. How does that then go out to the supply chain and out to subcontractors? How are you actually seeing that? Is the ability to implement and handle that technology in the supply chain, or has the supply chain got to catch up? What's your feeling around that?
I mean, generally, we are seeing a lot of progress in the last years in the Middle East, and especially in Qatar, implementing BIM in general. And I can also confirm that this mandate of BIM by the many employers and almost all the big players in the market, it gives a trigger. In general, it gives a trigger and motivated people to implement BIM. And we see on many projects, and on one really big project in Qatar, where we noticed that the people realize the benefits and really get passionate on utilizing it as much as possible, because they saw the benefits in it. In terms of how far the supply chain and bringing that, I believe it's a process. So we are still struggling a bit. I mean, I've taken from Richard's presentation very good two statements. BIM is here to stay, and we should really look at the information and the model as a view on the information collected, and it is the asset, is it the value? And nowadays you don't really see that. That's at least our feeling, that this information is kept during design to be transferred to construction, to be transferred to handover. So that the implementation is there. We are seeing on many, let's say, transitional phases, some kind of transfer of information, but I still believe that there should be another push on that. The employers should really realize and understand and start from the end, start to think, what do I need?
Okay.
When I'm implementing BIM, what is my strategy? It's not just fancy, it's just a trend that I have to follow. It's something that I need. And I need to build a foundation.
Sure. So it's coming back again to the outcome basis of using the technology, not just because it's good, but actually what is the business outcome for the clients at the end.
Right,
I think that's a good point. It's starting to become a bit of a theme as we go through this. I'm going to push maybe Pavi a bit more on this. When you are seeing how are tender documents structured, are you seeing separate discipline models? Are you seeing common platforms? What is generally are you getting out of, for example, when you get a tender issued, where is it? You can go down, you can tell me if you like that you're getting 90% of them on a CAD basis, but what's the picture out there? You're with a multiplex, so you are certainly positioned as somebody who knows. Yeah, give us a bit of insight around that.
What I can see, most of, like, I would say 8 out of 10 projects these days we are bidding, there is some kind of a big BIM requirement, which is a really positive thing. But I'll take from Rasha what she mentioned. There is a BIM requirement, but unfortunately, often client is not fully clear what they require in terms of BIM. It's kind of a, definitely BIM is no more a choice because we have DM mandate there. So BIM is required, but the BIM EAR put in the tender specification is very much unclear, and I wouldn't see BIM as a technology change. To me, it's a change in construction culture, and BIM is only a tool for that. So to make the BIM fully success, it should be. I mean, I believe the contractual terms also should be slightly or largely modified to suit this collaborative working approach. So only a BIM requirement as a technology, I don't think it will take BIM to the level where the industry required at the moment.
Okay, but from what you're saying though, the fact that clients aren't always able to be clear about specifically what they want at the beginning of the project, and to a large extent, how could they be? That's not going to hold back the the use of the technology, is it? That wouldn't make you default back to CAD. It would. That's not the factor. Is it not the fact that the entire supply chain hasn't yet actually made that investment to deliver in a common model?
That's another challenge there. The entire supply chain, you have rightly mentioned that. Now, the market maturity is another factor that we need to consider, because BIM is not a single player's play. It's a teamwork. So when I say that the collaborative approach, it's every stakeholders within construction industry should buy that. The technology, definitely, it's moving forward, and we have seen great achievement using BIM. As a company, we implemented from 2008, and we have, we as a company, even if it is not client mandate, we decide to implement some aspect of BIM in every project.
Okay. But something we're going to be talking about later on today is cost estimating from models. So, and we've got a panel that's fairly full with contractors here. So I'm going to ask you, all of you, in fact, are you seeing integrated bill of quantities being derived from the model, or are they being derived from CAD, basically flattened out CAD plans and measured in a traditional way? I'm going to turn to Arsen first. What's your view on that, or do you even know whether it's coming out of the model or not?
Yeah, I think for the quantity surveying and cost estimating, what relates to BIM is it's a hybrid process.
Okay.
To me, I think at different stages of BIM, as it progresses, you can get certain amount of data, not everything. So you have to have a hybrid process, and you have to have a platform that supports this, to sort of not overload your models in terms of geometry, and use more smarter approach like parameters or calculated values, to derive the required quantities out of BIM for estimation.
Mansoor, are you seeing, again, same question to you, are you seeing BIM-derived commercial management bill of quantities, or, again, don't you know, you're just getting a bill of quantities? How do you see that?
May you make this question a bit more clear?
So when you are receiving tender documentation, your pricing document, in terms of what we would call a traditional bill of quantities, do you know whether that's derived from the model, or has the PQS just delivered it straight out of the flattened out CAD plans?
It would be difficult to...
You wouldn't know?
No, I mean, yeah, it would be difficult to distinguish if this is extracted from model or it's QS. But for us as a main contractor, if you're talking about the tendering stage, anyway, either it's a model or not, we still need to verify. So if the client will be passing to us the model which he used, we still need to go through that and we'll verify.
Interesting. So yes, indeed, you've got to verify it anyway. So therefore, I suppose, same question in a different way. Would you use the model to verify it?
Yes, if the client passes to us the model, we will verify through the model itself.
Okay, good.
Chris, if I may jump in. At JLL, we also have a cost management division, and I would say that at the moment it depends on project to project, and it's of course a mixed model approach. I think about 75 to 80% of the quantities can be taken off very easily, especially if the project is very complicated. It's very easy to take off the model quantities from the model, but the remaining ones have to be taken out the traditional way. Okay,
so we're almost in the position of having a hybrid situation.
At the moment, yes.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so by the way, any questions? Let's go out to the floor on that one. No, I don't think anything. No question. There's one there. Sorry, just down at the.
In your collective opinion, what do you think is necessary to take BIM as a collaboration tool to the next stage of removing the hybrid section out of measurement? Is it a collective agreement of what the standard is? Is it an incorporation of a standard system of measurement? What are your feelings?
Okay, so the question is how do we clear out the hybrid situation? Arsen, you wanted to go on that question.
What I was saying is this needs to be coming from the client requirements and the type of information client shares. So if we're sharing 2D and the 3D at the same time, and we're saying that 2D is to prevail in case of differences, then this is not going to work. Whereas if we just, contractually just share the 3D information or BIM information, and then we say that this information is reliable, you can count on it, then that's going to work.
Okay. So, but from I can understand from the perspective, the client may mandate its use if they actually want to use the model as, if you like, contractual exhibit. But in terms of getting to that stage, the design team is actually in their gift to use it anyway. Whether mandated or not, is that correct?
In most cases, yes. But like I said, if you're doing BIM and you want an efficiency out of it, it shouldn't be a one-way road. So you have to also look at what you're getting, from upstream. So you can't, as a client or as a project manager, you can't demand from your contractor to deliver everything 4D, 5D, if you haven't given the basis of it, the reliable basis of it, and there is no duplicate information, what's most important.
Okay, thank you very much. So if we look at, excuse me, model ownership, the use of a common data environment, and this is one of the questions that has come up before, tends to drive a one-stop shop design solution from the market. Do you think that actually that's best for the industry and the clients? I'm actually going to ask that question to you, Ben. Is that it would seem an easiest way to actually get to that single common model, but is that going to be good for the industry and good for the client? What's your feeling on that?
I think it will be good. I think it will take time, and I'd like to use an interesting scenario and debate that we have in our office. I think as with any technology, there's always a bit of smoke and mirrors as everybody implements it, whether they are actually truly implementing it, looking under the bonnet to see who's actually truly engaged in it. But just to give you an example of a debate that we have in the office. Interiors. So I think there's a perception that BIM and Revit and the various platforms are fantastic for architecture and built form and MEP, and that's true. But if you take interiors, which in fact, our first projects in, say, 2013 were interiors projects. We're now doing it as a sort of total design solution. We still deliver about 10 or 20, maybe up to 30% of an interiors project in AutoCAD. So our architectural projects will be 100% Revit. Our MEP will be 100% Revit, but we still deliver 10 to 30% of an AutoCAD, an interiors project in AutoCAD. And we debate this regularly, whether that's right or not, because there's so many bespoke items within an interiors project. Does it make sense to build the models for something that may perhaps only be used once, for example? So I think whether that will change, I'm not sure, but I think it will take time. And one of the things that we really noticed, and this was touched on, I think, in Richard's talk, was unlike a lot of other softwares, we went through a year or two of pain at the front end, to be honest. Unlike a lot of other softwares where you buy the software, you train a few people and you move on, what we realized very early on, and we hear this time and time again, is as a business, it's more cultural. It's as much about the culture as it is about the software. And we've got a number of people that work for us, that have worked for other big organizations, where they've maybe tried to implement BIM, and because of the lack of drive to really embrace it and enjoy it and make a decision that this is the future, it's sort of fallen by the wayside. So I think companies need to really embrace it and make a decision, and it needs to be driven from the top. And until that happens within an organization, it won't happen. But it will take time.
Vishal, your view, I know you had a view on that as well.
I completely agree with him that it should be business driven, that you can't just start off with the BIM strategy. I think Richard touched on it before as well, that you need to have an overall arcing business model, a business strategy, and then a digital or a BIM strategy would sort of feed into it. It's only up then that you can analyze that, okay, you would develop your as-is organizational model, that this is where you are, and to be model that after 3 years or 5 years, you need to be at this level, maybe from level 2 to level 3. That's where you want to go. And this is sort of the what they call the readiness gap that is in place, which could be either one way or the other. One option would be to sort of have process optimization within your organization to sort of uplift and reduce that gap. And the second way, if you think that the business as a business, you're comfortable in implementing it, then you would go ahead and implement that. Okay.
And does my first part of my question was really around the drive to a one-stop solution. It's certainly if you're looking at from the common data environment, it seems to be the easiest way to implement that. But actually, is that best for the industry? What's your feeling about it? And if it's not best for the industry, how do you do it?
Yeah, at the moment, I think we still don't have any case study in which there was one single model and everything was all the data was stored and stored in that model. We still haven't achieved that. I think we still have a long way to go on that. But since you see these days, a lot of project teams are all distributed across different parts of the globe. And I think collaboration is certainly key to that, and common data environment definitely helps in that process at the moment.
Okay, interesting. Anybody there's a a question here. Before I'll allow you to ask a question, I'm just going to ask a general question. Has anybody experienced a true common data environment on a project here in the region?
We had it on one of the rail projects in Qatar.
Okay.
I mean, we had challenges, definitely.
Sure.
Even technical challenges in terms of internet and whether is it really feasible to practice complete full BS 1192 workflows, or are we really working online together on the model? We had such challenges, but I believe you can adapt to the technical. I mean, we found a solution to make the best out of it, so to say. But it was a challenge in the beginning because it's a new environment, technical, and I felt like, and the team was the first time working overseas, many parties working in different places. And my first statement about the BIM manager date, and it's not a shame to pick the phone and call. You really do need this type of personal connection to the people.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was a kind of hybrid combined solution, but there are case studies, definitely.
Yeah. And Arsene, you've experienced it as well. Yeah, positive experience?
Of course. In our current project, we have a common data environment which enables seamless information exchange between associated contractors, subcontractors, so it's working well if there's a framework to drive that.
Okay, so it is out there. And sorry, so now your question, unless it was the same question.
I'm glad you asked that question. I'd like to follow up on that.
Go on.
With regards to, when I think about the reality of BIM, one of the biggest concerns is interoperability of models.
Yeah.
We've been on many projects here where there is a supposed common data environment, but it states that everything should be submitted in a certain file format. And it's usually, well, you must import things into Revit file, place it in the right coordinates, and then place it into the common data environment. For somebody else to then go extract that Revit file, import it into their authoring software, which is most likely on big projects different from Revit, whether it's steel or if they're doing certain components that have to be fabricated, like on a rail system. And then you get this you have to face the hard reality that you can't work with a certain file format. You got to really address and test interoperability of file formats. I would love the panel to just discuss how they face this challenge. What have they done to ensure interoperability and to ensure that everybody can contribute in a digital way using the authoring software of their choice?
It's a fair point. Rash, I'm just going to quickly come back to you just for a quick answer on that. Was that one of the challenges you found in Qatar?
It was one of the challenges, especially because they were working on different systems sometimes. So for sure, neutral exchange. Am I still on it?
You're on. Go.
I mean, IFC is the best choice, but you wouldn't be able to. Sometimes you wouldn't be able to really work within the same environment. I'm just having I'm fine.
Yeah, okay. So I think overall, it's all right. I've picked up what you're saying. So yes,
that's what I meant. It was one of the challenges, definitely. So the easiest way is to agree on a software, but to be honest, as a BIM consultant, we always encourage to not stick to one software, to really be able to manage all the beauty of each and power of each software together. So I believe the trend will go somewhere towards neutral, towards standards, towards formats that you can work with within each and every software.
Okay, and that sounds like I don't know where's Richard. That sounds like some of the classification challenges that he was talking about. So there you go. That's looking far too far away. That was the classification point I think you were making in your presentation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The need to get classification. It's not the most glamorous part of BIM, trawling through and sorting out classification, but it is a fundamental requirement.
Indeed.
And it's a big effort, yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, let's move on. I think we're going to be picking that one up later on in the day as well. just going to come to the. I'm going to have to close down this this session now. We have come to a little bit close to the end of our time, but I'm going to pick up something that was a point that was made earlier on, which was I think it was either Ben or Rasha, which was talking about the again looking from the client's perspective to try to get output from this. One of the fundamentals is to achieve decent handover documentation, as-built documentation. I'm going to ask first of all, I'm going to go to the contracting side here. Do you commonly see a requirement, I'm talking about a requirement rather than a wish, a requirement for you to provide a model back to, an integrated model back to the client as as-built information? Ask them first of all yourself.
Most of the requirements these days are coming in with a handover model as a one of the sections. However, it's not detailed and it's not specified. So I'm sure as a contractor, if I get these requirements, detailed requirements of asset information later on, it's going to affect the way I do, my BIM development. Whereas if I get the requirements upfront, I will, be able to prep the model as I go.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So definitely there is a lack of asset information requirements as such for the handover stage, whereas the details.
So sometimes you're being asked for a model as an output without having it as an input. Is that what you're saying?
No. What I'm saying is there is a lot of detail on the process and the interim requirements, and less details on the final handover.
Okay. All right. No, I understand what you're saying. It's a fair point. I'll come to you in a moment. Pat Vishal, just a view on that.
I think since past 2-3 years, the situation has changed quite drastically. Where now, a recent project I'm working on for a client, as I'm starting to see that the deliverable required towards the end from the consultant is LOD 300 model, and they have to deliver it. But a couple of years before, it was just considered as an option. The client would recommend you to use BIM just for coordination purposes.
Okay, so it is developing. Pav, it sounds like you've got a view on this.
Yeah, because you've been mentioning about the as-built model requirement, and that's again another positive thing. Yes, we are getting a requirement from the client as-built model. The problem again there, why would you require the as-built model, and what data the client requires, which is not specified? So at the end, the contractor who wanted to deliver is in confusion. What data, if you take any asset, how much data required, what are the data required, what format you require those data, which is normally not being specified. So I think overall there is a lack of standards. I think earlier Richard has mentioned a lack of a body, or a national body to policing it is probably, we are lacking that standard, national standard.
Fair point. Rasha, can I come to you?
Yeah, I would add to that actually. I mean, we stressed the point of the need of strategy and really well thought implementation from client side. And this, from my point of view and from our experience working aside of clients, is that it's not only about how to mandate it, how to dictate it as well. So there are a lot of clients even issuing after award, a lot of references, a lot of manuals. On top of that, you really need let's say, a team on your side as a client where you support the supply chain to deliver as per your needs. I believe it's a must. And from the other side, on top of that, it is very important I would like to read a tender documents where BIM is not a isolated part. I will just send you the BIM part. No, I'm interested in everything because it shouldn't contradict with other deliverables, especially for the handover. So I need to know what is the project team is have to deliver, because it's part of the information that should be included in BIM. So it's something comprehensive, it's something integrated together, and that's what I really aim to see BIM in future. And this is what I believe a very, very important point in the implementation.
It's very good.
I hope we will not miss for a long time.
That's very good from you. A very good closing statement. Actually, I think there's some good fundamentals in there. Mansour, how do you feel about that? Are you getting those requests for the as-built model, and how are you handling that?
Well, we strongly believe that the BIM development should be based on the original objectives, and we should be very clear in our mind when we start initiating the process for what purpose we need the BIM model. So if it is for the sake of the as-built, it would be much easier just to build the model after we finish the construction, rather than making the contractor struggle at the beginning. One of the main challenges that one major input should come from the specialists and subcontractors, which we are talking about initial stage where the model coordination should be happen. These contractors are not appointed yet. They are not on board. They will come later with their details, and they should be inputting in the model while the model already built and considered something else. So if our objective from the beginning is to make a handover or as-built model, that can come only at the end, and we can just follow the traditional way. While we believe that the BIM implementation major value will come in the coordination and conflict detection, which we should be focusing on that. And on that basis, the BIM specification should be written clear at the tender stage. And that the contractor and everyone should agree on it, communicated well, and they should be delivering across the target.
Okay, thank you. That's. I think we've got a couple of key messages coming out of that. Just before I ask Ben to come back on that, are there any other questions? There's one just there. Again, a gentleman on the aisle, yes.
Here, I have a comment on what Mr. Manzoor is mentioning. BIM today is becoming a tool, a mandatory tool for the government and the clients. Because
hold the microphone to you.
Yeah,
that's
the
better.
life cycle for the contractors, designers, and the tendering people, there is just 3 to 4 years. But the building, once it's built, it is going to be owned by the property owner for 25, 30 years. Today we are talking about energy efficiency and the way it was constructed. We have actually dealt this BIM as a smart tool to build, to find the clash detections. Before the BIM itself, we have built a lot of buildings. So it's not an efficient way of building a building we have built. But today, the buildings what we built without BIM, with BIM, we are leaving to the clients. They are talking about 30 to 40% energy kind of extra consumption in the buildings what we built. Today we are not able to track anything. We have reached a stage where IoT has come into the building management services. When we are talking about IoT, we should have a proper BIM built up model which is existing with the client to get into the building to understand how it was built, how it needs to be corrected. We want to access all the dampers today. We want to access all the units. We want to get into every situation of the building, not only the plans. Today, energy efficiency, it is not only the prime plans. We are talking about the entire services. With 2D drawings, the clients and the building management companies will not be able to do. They need the modeling. Contractors can build a system or build the services, build the building with 2D drawings. They were capable of building it. But today, to maintain the technically advanced building, they are becoming clueless. So BIM will be highly used post-construction for maybe 25, 30 years.
And I think this is the. I think your point is this is the. Well, it's not hidden value; it's the obvious value, isn't it? The construction period. We're using BIM to enable the construction period. You're living with the building a lot longer, and it's got this huge advantage to actually make that much more efficient, much more cost effective, and as you say, much more sustainable from an environmental perspective. And I think you're right. The market's probably got to work a little bit harder to get that output right. Final word. From the panel, at least to you, Ben. I gave you the first one. I'm going to give you the last word. As-built documentation in the interiors perspective. Are you being actually asked for that as a model or not?
For as-built?
Yeah.
Well, no, we're not. As consultants, we haven't yet had a contractor feed us as-built on completion of a project.
Okay.
But it is something we're talking about with a number of contractors. And we look forward to the day that happens. What I will say is we've been having conversations with 3 developers that I feel are leading the way over the last 6 months who are really embracing BIM, known developers. They've got a number of BIM people within their businesses, and the reason they're doing that is for the FM, the real value of BIM. We had a meeting with a developer yesterday who is probably the most advanced of all that we've spoken to in terms of how they've embraced it. There's clearly a number of people around the table who who knew, had been there a while and knew where they were going. There was a clear strategy. And they're looking at writing BIM as a prerequisite into their RFPs and pre-qualification of contractors, consultants, etc. And the dilemma they have is that if they do that, will that limit them in terms of the number of consultants and contractors they can go to with RFPs, which is a genuine concern. But back to your question, it will all come, they will be expecting as-builts in a BIM model because they need to then take it over and manage it. So.
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
so I think we've pretty much come to the end of that section. Obviously, supply chain's feels like the supply chain's got a bit of work to do to really create integrated solutions for the market. We're still definitely in a hybrid situation, but it feels like the direction of travel is the right way, and it's certainly being led. Again, it's being led from a client basis on terms of requirement, and I think that the last point is fundamental to that. Loads of questions that came up from that, and you'll be able to address them in the break, which is after the next session. And we've got a great session next. In the meantime, please, round of applause for the panel, please. Thank you very much.